Hello everybody and welcome to my knife review. Today I'm going to review the SOG Trident 2.0 knife. As you can see, I've also given the rating to the knife as well as the specification of the knife is listed here. But to save time, I'm going to put all these into the video description later on, so you don't have to worry about wasting time watching this part of the video. I'm going to jump into the review with all my opinions, positive as well as negative, on this knife. So here we go. So start off, this SOG Trident knife, if you don't know about it, it's actually a design legacy from a Vietnam War knife which they designed for the Studies and Observations Group, which is a special elite group of the United States Army during the Vietnam War. And I think they conduct reconnaissance missions as well as probably some sabotage and spying. So basically, original knife, I think they come with leather handle, but at some stage this other company named after SOG actually made a new version of the knife, and it's got a stacked micarta handle, but most of the other features like the double scallop design as well as the hand guard, and pretty much it looks very similar to the original. And it's a very well designed, very well built knife. But of course it's got positive and negative things about it, and we'll talk about that later. So the blade design is very unique and it's very functional. As you can see, it's very thick. It's almost about a quarter-inch thickness of the blade, and it's very pointy on the tip. So this thing can pierce through any body armor just like a freaking butter. So it's designed for fighting. And the tip is reasonably strong as well, as it doesn't actually taper down all the way. We'll try to focus. So it's a very aggressive knife, and it's got really good belly here for utility cutting as well. And this knife actually has full tang construction. We'll talk about that later, but you can see it is a full tang. The entire blade goes from the tip over here to it's one piece of metal. It comes down to here. It's a very small bit coming up, looking like a screw sort of shape, but it is a full tang design. Although it's not the most, some people would refer this as a rat tail tang, because it tapers too much into a small portion of the blade, but by the end of the handle. But full tang usually suggests it's a strong knife. And the sharpness of this knife, actually, when I first received it, it was the sharpest knife I ever got at the time, because at one stage I think it was able to almost split a hair just out of the box. I have to respect these Taiwanese manufacturers. I think they didn't just sharpen the edge, but they also actually polished the edge to some degree and made it very sharp. This thing was we're just gonna slap some magazine paper here. I've actually only really cut some paper with it, but as you can see, this thing just cuts paper like butter. With absolutely no problem. Now we get rid of some S, and it's got a hand guard for fighting use. As you can see, it protects your hand from sliding forward if you say thrust this knife toward an enemy or tree. God knows what you might actually you thrust this against. But the full tang usually is a feature found on fighting knives, and I mean the full hand guard. And the flat butt cap actually is good for hammering into a object, or say if you have to use it, say, as a hammer. unfortunately, I don't think this knife should be used as such, or at least not that often anyways, because it's a screw construction and the screws can actually come loose with vibration and shock. The thick and strong blade, we've already talked about that, and the quality of this knife is excellent. I mean, if you look closely, there's let's see if we can focus. This knife was made that was almost unpickable, but with perhaps the exception of the sheath itself. But we'll talk about this in the negatives of the review. But the knife itself is made to be a very, very high quality. The blade itself is high polished, and it's not mirror polish. It still has a satin look, but I think after the satin finish, they actually did some, like maybe a Scotch Brite or something that actually made the blade extra glossy. It's way more glossy than any other satin finish knife I've ever got, really. And the high polished blade is actually it's good because it actually reduces the surface. It interacts with the environment and reduces the rusting probability. Now the sharpening stone in here is actually, it comes with the knife. I don't know what it's made of, but it actually looks like a piece of concrete block, really. But honestly, I think having this thing in there is pretty handy, because if you're going to take this into the wild and having a field sharpener is better than nothing. The knife blade is actually made of AUS-8 stainless steel. Today it's not considered as a super steel or by any means, but I think people are actually overlooking the fact that super steel has its own drawbacks, and people often think of a steel as a super steel based on the fact that whether it's able to resist like wear, but we also have to look at a knife is not just designed for lasting edge, but also it's designed for its strength. I mean, usually a higher carbon content means a lower ability to resist fracturing, and this knife made of a AUS-8 steel, which is actually a medium sort of carbide steel. It's probably about 0.8% of carbon in it. It should be able to actually resist rust as well as chipping more than most of other super steels out there. I mean, after all, this is a big blade. If it's a small blade, it's probably better to be a super steel. But for a big blade, I think I prefer something that's not super hard and super wear resistant. And it's got a lanyard hole on the knife as well. I mean, not every fighting knife has a lanyard hole, but here it has one, and I put the lanyard loop in here. But having this option is great if you say you're in the wild, you don't want to drop your knife, just lose it, and sometimes if your life depends on it and you drop your knife into the river or water or something and lose it, and that's it, game over for you. Anyways, here comes the negative points. Now, first of all, it's I said it's a good fighting knife, but I think in terms of survival knives usually come with a drop point, and there's a reason for it, because as you can see, like, it's such a fine tip, although it's actually reinforced for how pointy it is. But for survival use, you want to actually, it's got a drop point, which is just means like a stronger, wider tip for any sort of abusive use, and you don't want to just chip the tip off. Now, here comes the butt cap talk. Now, what I actually meant previously by the knot, actually, this is a red tang design, because this part where you see the inner circle actually comes out is as much metal as there is coming from this one piece of a steel. So they've actually put like a screw on construction in there, and in my opinion, actually it's been verified. I've seen people on YouTube who have actually chopped this knife, like chop it against a tree, and this screw actually comes loose. The other thing is there's a leather sheath for this knife, which potentially absorbs moisture, and leather can actually go swell or like grow mold. I've had that kind of experience with other leather sheaths, so I don't really know why people always design knives with leather sheaths for survival use or fighting. The handle design is actually not that comfortable. I have medium to small sized hand, and when I hold this knife, it just feels like this handle it doesn't have enough meat for you to grab on. Like it's very much of a cylindrical shape. They've put like little grooves here, but I feels like I can hold it here, and I want to hold it really hard, and it just doesn't feel right for some reason. I think one thing is this handle is made of micarta, which is very hard material. It doesn't actually even look like micarta, but apparently, so I've heard, it's stacked micarta. It's very hard, and it doesn't actually give very much support, shall I say, and it just doesn't. I mean, the knife is not uncomfortable to hold, but it just doesn't feel like it's designed for your hand. It doesn't feel like it's an extension of your hand. I'll give you an example of something that's designed very well. This is a folding knife, which is not often that you'll find a very good comfort against the fixed blade. But this immersion knife is actually much more well designed in terms of the handle comfort than a fixed blade knife that you see over here, which is very unusual. Anyways, so the cap is not easily. So the butt cap, as far as that is concerned, you actually get like this very strange screw type, which you would hardly find it anywhere to actually to use a screwdriver. You can't find a screwdriver for this basically. So if you want to maintain the knife, or if this thing does come loose, you can't actually tighten it. You probably have to send it away to SOG company itself, but God knows how that is going to go. No. There's actually no drainage hole on the sheath. As you can see, there's a hole here, but it doesn't actually. When I look into the handle, it does not actually. It just doesn't connect to the cavity of the sheath, so I'm not sure what this hole is really for. It doesn't seem to be able to actually drain any water out, and it's almost blocked. There's a knife retention strap here, which is poorly made. Really, honestly, it's like they're using a different type of leather here. As you can see, I mean, when it came to me, this knife was just like this. This leather here start to like tear apart and start to like peel off layers for some reason. It's still doing its job so far, but I mean, I hardly have actually used this knife too much, and it's already become like this. I think the leather sheath is actually not made into the same quality level as the knife itself. So I really do wonder what happened. Like the knife is actually so well made, and the leather sheath it's got like stitches coming off, and this leather strap is actually not very high quality. Anyways, I'm going to wrap up the video for now. Tune in for part 2 because I can't exceed the length I have. So I will see you in part 2. Thank you for watching so far.